putting you off buying. So, what I'm going to do now with you is I'm going to go through the 9 motivators, explain what they are, and if we'd have the handout, the first handout handed out now, that would be really great. You're going to get a sheet of paper with these 9 motivators on it. And I'd like you, in advance of actually having your real map handed out, to see if you can predict what your top 3 motivators are. Okay, so there are 9 motivators. Let's see if you know yourself. And I'm just going to go through what this means and why it's like it is. So, there are 9 motivators in the human psyche. We've all got all 9 of them. We haven't just got 2 or 3. We've got all 9, but we've got them in a different proportion and a different order. And like values, we always go for the one that's more important than the other one. Okay, so our happiness depends upon us getting satisfied with the motivator that we really want. And I'm going to be quite frank with you, most people do not know what motivates them. They think they do, but they don't. If I was to tell you now that money as a motivator in this team of people, there may be individuals who think they're money motivated, but actually it is not that important. We'll come on to this later on. It's not important. It's weird, isn't it? And I'll explain what this means or not, but only for a limited number of people in this room is money really significant. Is that you, maybe? Maybe it is you. But people think, they say they want money, but they're only saying that because other people are saying it and they want to be the same as everybody else. It's not what is really turning them on. So knowing what really turns you on, what your hot button is absolutely vitally important. Now, you'll see there are 9 of them, and they're in 3 groups of 3. There are green ones, red ones, and blue ones. And as a matter of interest, we'll come to this in more detail later on, there is, in fact, quite a lot of tension between these motivators. So it's entirely possible to have 2 top motivators which are conflicting. You want 2 opposite things. So, for example, if you were to have searcher as your number 1, making a difference, and defender as your number 2, being secure, or vice versa, 1 and 2, you would have a conflict because this motivator wants things to change because that's what making a difference means. You want to change things to make the difference. But being secure and predictable means you don't want things to change. And that's just one of these little tensions. And that's why some of you are such nut jobs. Oh, I didn't say, no, I didn't mean that. That's why we have these conflicts, why we become uncertain, why we procrastinate, why we vacillate, why we suddenly find, I don't know what I really want because I want 2 or even 3 opposite things. Now, let's go through it. I want you to identify your 1, 2, and 3, and also, if you can, what is the least important motivator for you? Here we go. So starting at the bottom of the Maslow hierarchy, number 1, are you coming to work because what you really want is security? Is security a key motivator for you? Is that what you want? Which also includes stability, predictability, etc., etc. Or are you coming to work because you want to belong? Because actually it's an extension of your social life. You know, you've got friends at work. Is that something that's really important to you? You look for work to provide you with meaningful relationships. Or are you coming to work for recognition? In fact, we're having an award ceremony tonight. That's a classic situation for people looking for recognition. So if you were a star, you would love to get a reward like that or an award like that because it gives you that public recognition that you're looking for. Or, and so these are all relationship-driven motivators. Relationship. And what relationship motivators are about are really, they're asking the question, how can I get emotional strokes around here? The question in the mind where these 3 motivators dominate your profile, if they do, would be, actually, it's all about relationships with other people and how these other people interact with you and value you. That's the most important thing in life for you. Or we go to the red ones, where we start thinking about, or do I want power and control and influence? I want to make the decisions and make things happen. Or right in the middle here of the 9, number 5, both ways, we call it the builder, or do I want money? And by the way, this is the most competitive of all the motivators. The people who really want money, as opposed to saying they want money, are highly competitive. So If you were earning £10,000, they want to earn 11. If you're earning £100,000, they want to earn 110. It's not enough to have money. You could have more money than somebody else. So very competitive motivator. In fact, the most competitive of all. Or the expert. Learning, knowledge, yes, training, development, coaching, mentoring, all those things. And can you see these were called the achievement motivators. These are all about getting things done. So this kind of motivational profile, if you had all three of these, it would be, what can I achieve? Not about getting strokes, but what can I achieve in the world? That's what's really getting to me. I want to achieve things. I want to make things happen. Make the money, have the power, have the expertise in my head where I can control things. And then we move to the blue ones, the growth motivators. This is all about people who are on a path of personal development. So these questions are asking, really, why is this important? Why is this important? What's the meaning of this? Things that are significant. So the creator wants to innovate. They want new things. They want their name in the executive summary. They want to be known for having innovative solutions to difficult problems. Some of you in here are like that. Some of you love a challenge, and then you get a creative solution. That's what really floats your boat. And this was mentioned this morning by Deborah, when she talked about autonomy. The spirit motivator is the one that seeks freedom and independence and is exactly opposite, again, to the defender, because the defender likes routine. You can see that, can't you? Predictability, stability. So routine things, that's what the defender likes. And there's no good or bad. These are all equal. Whether or not they're good for you depends upon the role that you're doing. So if you've got a role that's very repetitive and routine, actually having the defender motivator is going to be good for you. But if you've got this motivator, the spirit, then routine is not really what you want. Of course, you've got both of them, got a conflict. But here, that's the most competitive. These ones, this one, the spirit, is the most bolshy. So that guy over there is obviously, he's on a call somewhere. But, look, he could be a spirit. A phone call's coming, he's going to fly off. These are the most difficult people to manage because they don't like being managed. They want to be free. Have you got any of those in your teams? And suddenly this makes sense. So-and-so, whenever I tell him to do this, they don't like it. No, because this may be very strong. Or finally, the apex of the Maslow hierarchy, we have the searcher. This is the person who wants to make a difference. This is the person who loves being on a mission. Purpose, mission, making a difference, that's what he likes. And I've already told you, so some of you in this room will have replied to you, this is pretty powerful in this group of people. But don't let me second guess you. So that's important, and your lowest is important because it could be something that's tripping you up. It could be something that's stopping you doing the job of work you're supposed to be doing because, in actual fact, you don't want to do it. It's in your job description to do it, but actually you don't want to. And do you know what? It's like selling. We don't buy because we need a car. We buy because we want one. If we bought a car because we need to buy, why don't we all buy three-wheelers, Reliant Robins? We'd just get us from A to B, wouldn't it? But we don't buy Reliant Robins because we want something better, something with status, something with power, something with speed, something that reflects us. So your lowest, let me give you an example of what I mean. Supposing you're a manager and you've got to manage loads of people, and supposing that is your lowest motivator. You don't want to manage. You don't want power. You don't want influence. Might that be an issue? Suppose you're head of learning and development and expert is your lowest motivator. Can you see what I'm getting at? Every one of these, you could imagine a situation where, actual fact, if that was your lowest and you didn't really want to do that, you're going to have a problem in the long term. So one final thing before we look at your real results is this. I talked about in the long term. There's a definite correlation between motivation and performance, but in the short term, you can get away with being demotivated and being a high performer in the short term. A story I can tell you, I had a pharmaceutical company once, about 5 years ago, who called me in. I had their top 24 salespeople in the room for an afternoon session, and I'd mapped them all in advance. And they were wanting me to give individual feedback on all 24 people live and sharing this information live, personal information live. So it's a fascinating afternoon. But the thing was, I got to a guy, in fact, they were in regions around the UK, and this guy was he basically headed up sales in Kent. And I got to his map and I said, well, I can't remember his name now, but Mike, I said, you know, I think he's thinking of leaving the company and he's very unhappy here. And it was uproar. It was uproar because Mike was the second top selling sales guy in the whole of their system. And this uproar happened, but I noticed as they were all criticizing me, no, you can't say that, Mike's this, Mike's that. I noticed actually Mike was just sitting there. I said, well, hang on. I said, why don't we ask Mike? And Mike then said, you know, James is absolutely right. I'm not happy in this job. I'm performing well because I know what I'm doing. I've got a plan in 3 years' time to get out of this industry, this sector, and do something else and emigrate. He said, I'm making the money now while I can to do it. So he was forcing himself with his will. His willpower was forcing him to perform at a high level, but his heart wasn't in it, and he wasn't in it. And here's the thing. When you're young, you can do it for quite a long time. But when you get to a certain age, and you start doing things you don't really want to do, it starts dragging you down, and it leads to stress, illness, mistakes, all kinds of problems. So the ideal scenario you want for yourself is to be doing a job you really want to do because you really get motivated by it. Your motivators get met and fed, and you get this energy boost, this virtuous cycle coming to you where you become a really powerful person.